Welcome to Fiery Femmes, the podcast where high achieving women build wealth, redesign their careers, and create lives with real freedom. I'm Sheena, an accredited investor, former tech sales professional, and the founder of Fiery Femmes. After a decade across global SaaS, startups, and my own reinventions, I realized the most powerful thing a woman can have is optionality. So, in every episode, we explore the future of work, the psychology of wealth, and the practical strategies that help women build careers and lives that evolve as fast as they do.
So, to introduce yourself, from what I know, you're a world renowned chef. You've traveled the world. You've cooked for many celebrities. And I remembered when we met, I'm just like, this can't happen that this person has like literally done so many things in her lifetime. You've been in the military as well. And lo and behold, it's real. I fact checked it. She's legit. Why don't you introduce yourself, Sarah, to the audience? Yeah, maybe I've missed a few things or a whole page.
Yeah. Thank you. What an introduction. And yes, I'm Sarah French, now retired ex-military chef. I had a catering company for 12 years that I got to fly around the world cooking for the world's rich and famous, at the same time being able to extend resources into different community projects such as homelessness and high-risk youth, which was really amazing. More recently, after a blow up with my health and, just in that second chapter of life, I qualified as a health coach. I am currently in the process of qualifying as a nutritionist, and I really shifted my focus from food being a sole pleasure source to life force. So that is where I'm at now on the journey. I'm an Airbnb host. I'm a wellness facilitator. I am an energetics, what would you call it? A consultant. I live in the low tox lane and I'm just over here loving life, really wandering through the weeds of what is important, how I want my life to look, and really breaking the molds of society's broken success paradigm. That really was the foundation for me having a massive, abundant life with all of those things that you said, A-lister celebrity chef, a very solid financial foundation was created within that success paradigm. However, my health suffered. I blew up the business. I had a lot of unfortunate events happen during that time personally. And because those platforms and those solid foundations of my health and my mental health and my mindset were not really as a priority as they should be for longevity and sustainability, things took a turn, and I really, really started to get clear that our health is our biggest asset, because as people like Steve Jobs would know, it doesn't matter how many zeros you have in the bank, how big your company is, if your health is not solid, none of that matters.
Exactly. And absolutely I'm 100% behind this. They say that you can have a lot of this is saying that you can have
Yes.
problems, but if your health is the problem, that's your only problem.
Yeah, it's like a busy man has 1,000 problems, an unhealthy man has one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. And one of my friends, I've known her since like during my 20s, like we all had like that time of like just partying all the time. And unfortunately, she had kidney issues from the get-go, diabetes actually.
Mm.
We recently reconnected and she said, a healthy person wears a crown that the sick can see. And that literally just gave me bumps. And I'm just like, that's insane, because when you're healthy, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And health is really perceptual. One of the first modules that we do in the nutritional training is, what is health? Like, your healthy and my healthy may be very different things. I think across the board, healthy is the absence of dis-ease. What is that dis-ease? How does that dis-ease in the body present? Is it your mood? Is it your mental health? Is it your microbiome? how are these things presenting? And I think a lot of the time where we're flawed in today's society is we're reactive rather than proactive, which is that we only sort of focus on a solution to fix something rather than prevent it from happening. And it's funny because we don't extend that same nonchalance in business. In business, we've got the roadmap and we've got the blueprint and you've got all of the roles of the company and you've incorporated it legally. And there's all of these tick and flicks that you create in business when you're launching because you want your best shot at success in that business space. But when it comes to the blueprint for our health, it's like, shit. It's a little bit like sleep. Like we give ourselves the leftovers after we've done what society says is important, which is be a good human, pay your taxes, go to work, make the money, work, sleep, repeat. So it's interesting to be on the other side of it and to really be consciously fostering that blueprint for a new idea of success and one that can be sustained for the rest of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about how we really do prioritize business, like we have our 12-month plan, we have our like quarterly check-ins, monthly
Yeah.
check your forecast, how are you tracking? But how often do we do the same when it comes to our health?
It's wild. And even being in this space and in that energy and really that being my focus this year, it's still, like, I can't believe I'm going to admit this to the whole world, but I had a bag of Cheezels last night. And I don't get down like that. I've got this health plan and life is still happening. So the other part of it is to really be kind to ourselves and to foster a relationship with ourselves. I think that is really the whole center point of everything that hinges in our lives, whether we're relating to people in business or we're relating to our business or our partner or our kids or our friends. That's all the other side of the coin of where our self-worth and where our value barometer is set. And we really we'd be wise to give attention equally to all of those parts.
Yes, for sure. And I think it's okay to have your Cheezels. I have
They were
love
delicious, by the way.
little junk food here and there.
Yeah.
I also think that the more you tell yourself you shouldn't or no, you're not allowed, the more you want something.
Absolutely. It's and that happened to me recently. I was going to go on a shred. I've really been scrolling too many fitfluencers. And that week leading up to this date that I was like, I'm going on the fat loss and yes, that will happen eventually. But I honestly ate everything inside. I was like, I had a burger, I had this. And I remember when I was in the midst of unhealthy coping mechanisms with alcohol and drug use, I would consume alcohol and drugs the same as I was consuming food a couple of weeks ago, by where when we get into that, and even in business, because work is an addiction as well, whether people like to admit it or not. We seem to reward ourselves when the things are done. Like, I'm going to take a break once these quarterly reports are done, or I'm going to have fun, or I'm going to be happy. And that doesn't really work. And I think that a restriction mechanism where we're going into our biology is like, oh, starvation or restriction. And so we try to do all the things and we overcompensate. And it never really equilibrates because we're starting that chapter on the back foot of we've drawn ourselves down into the negative before we've started. We've actually created the problem that we were seeking to solve by taking the action that we were going to take after we self-sabotage.
Yes. And one thing I've noticed with people who do that, those people who really do run themselves to the ground, and I've known a few, basically they would be like, yep, got to this day, deadlines done, work done. I'm off to a holiday. And guess what? They get sick. They don't enjoy the
Yes.
holiday. Their body just like shuts down and says like, finally I can be sick. And
Yeah.
it's you don't enjoy your holiday, you never get a break, and it's like this whole like wheel.
Yeah. And I think the nucleus of that wheel, any which way we look at it and any which way it presents extrinsically and externally, is avoidance. I really love that word because like I have a PhD in avoidance, but on the other side of that is addiction. And I don't know if those words could be used interchangeably as the nucleus of what we're talking about. But if you're at work and you're making money and you're telling yourself that you're doing it for the greater good of your family or the business needs you, like if you're doing anything excessively, you are in avoidance. You are avoiding something else that needs your attention that you're just not willing to, or you don't want to, or it may be unconscious to you. But excess is dangerous. Extremism is dangerous in any form. And I think we forget that in business because the world has told us to be a good human. We've got to work harder and do the things. And I think it's broken. I know unequivocally from personal experience that there is another way to do life and business, especially without being in avoidance. You've created that sustainability blueprint by where you can work and you can treat your body with respect and you can give yourself that hour in the morning to work on your biology and your microbiome and your frequency so as that when you do go away with your family, you're not spending the first 5 days in bed because it's the first time you've actually honored your body and given it the rest or the recharge that it's been begging for the last quarter.
Right? And that happens so often. Sarah, I wanted to ask you something, and this is actually something that it's planned to ask in the beginning of the show, but we just got into it, obviously. But I wanted to ask, obviously, like I've known that you've been in the military, you've been a chef, and now you're into health coaching, nutritional coaching, and I know that there's a few things in the pipeline as well. But what's something about how you live your day to day that most people wouldn't expect, given your background?
And now I follow the joy. I wake up and I'm very, very focused on my frequency and my vibration. Some mornings that looks like a walk on the beach. A lot of mornings it looks like a walk on the beach, an ocean swim, time with my dogs, music up really absurdly loudly. I tried the meditative stuff in the morning and it's just not a thing for me. Like I'm a very high energy being and I think I want to be catapulted into the day. And those are the things that really supercharge my frequency. I have a coffee at the coffee shop with the most amazing people. And previous to this part of life, I would wake up, I would get on my phone, on my laptop, I would be in boss bitch mode from the minute my eyes blinked open. And everything else was secondary to business. The emails, the calls. Oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God. Like I thought that my level of intensity and that energy was equivalent to what I currently experiencing now, which is very grounded, intentional expanding of the energy. But honey, that was anxiety. That was stress. That was a frantic state of being. And I had fooled myself into thinking that by starting the day and getting the ball running in that fashion and doing everything for everybody else, that was the reason why I was so successful and I was making so much money. Fast forward 10, 12 years, how I start my day is very different. And now I know when I fill up my tanks personally and energetically, I've got so much more fuel to foster the day and to be effective in life and in my business. It's a
Yeah.
complete 180, but it works. And it's really counterintuitive by what we've been programmed to believe the
Yeah.
best way to start the day is. So yeah, sometimes I have a 5-hour morning routine.
You have a what?
Some mornings I take 5 hours to do my routine. I'll be up at 4. I'm not touching the world until 9. And
Oh my
then
God.
because of my energy is like so big and so abundant, people are like, oh, you don't seem very grounded. I'm like, bitch, I've got a 5-hour morning routine. Like I am grounded. And this is what happens when you invest in yourself. You've got this abundance of energy and I'm always feeling amazing. I never get sick, to be honest.
Yeah. But I guess that's because you're following what feels good. You mentioned earlier that you follow
Mm.
joy. And I'd like to challenge, I guess, like the notion earlier about, back in the days, you were like in this boss bitch mode. You would like, moment you open, it's like business, emails, calls, the deals. But would you say it's like a season? at the time?
I think absolutely. I was doing the best that I could with what I had and for the time. And I think that my level of consciousness around what was required wasn't there. Like 43-year-old Sarah looking back at 25-year-old Sarah building this business would be like, yes, queen, go. Like, you did it. You're doing whatever it takes, like mission or die. My military training was kicked in, cocked, locked, loaded, and the targets were set and I was hitting every time. I think where the piece comes in of knowing when to pivot and when to switch gears. You cannot be in sixth gear and build mode all of the time. There's this process where you've got to build, and then you've got to nurture, and then you've got to rest, and then you've got to invest. And I was missing those other three pieces because, like, I'm a military war machine. My training just says sixth gear, go, mission or die. So that was kind of the blueprint to which I had built my business upon. But
Yeah.
I feel there's definitely a time and a place for that. And I feel that there is a way that we can look after ourselves and honor ourselves as well during that period, so as that we're not completely obliterated at the end of that. And we
Right.
can walk out of it going, oh, yeah, I did that. Like, I built my client base up. I still went to the gym twice a week. I had an ice bath, or I meditated each night. There's like having certain parameters woven into that building phase, I believe, is really important. And I'm proof of what happens when you don't have those.
It's all in hindsight, right?
And that is a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And with like, because you came from military discipline to a new way of living and now have that, I guess, luxury of living and like following your bliss, following your joy.
Mm,
What did military life teach you about that discipline, like living under pressure or not cracking under pressure, and just
mm.
that resilience piece?
I've got full body goosebumps. I And I actually just spoke about this to somebody the other day. The thing about military people and what we learn and what I learned specifically is, and it's very Layla Hamosi. She says, F your mood, get the job done. And that is very military. It doesn't matter how you're feeling, what you're thinking, how many beers you had the night before, how much sleep you didn't have. Monday morning, 7:30 a.m., you have to show up, show out, and be on that flight deck for check-in. So morning muster. So it taught me the piece where my mind can override my body like a war machine. And it's
Yeah.
blessing and a curse. So showing up for yourself, regardless of your mood, regardless of how you feel, and even saying this, I'm getting the creeps because I'm like, it is great and it is a good skill to have. But when you can't click off, it's like in your digestive system, there is nothing that says to stop eating the sugar, and your body will just keep consuming. Like, there's no, you've had enough switch. So we all know what happens when we don't honor and listen to our body, especially with the consumption of sugar. It's the same when you don't listen to your body. Like, I didn't even know when someone said, oh, listen to your body, I was like, my body doesn't speak. My mind does all the speaking, and my mind's in control here. So yeah, that was the blessing and the curse of the military. Just, you've got to keep showing up disciplined, like it's the plan and the mission, and you just keep doing the reps and doing the work. And mission success is imminent.
Yeah, definitely. I remembered, just the topic of like showing up.
Mm,
50% of the success that you want is actually just showing up. Just show up.
yeah.
That's it. And it's in
Mm.
how many opportunities came about just because I've showed up in like to support someone. I showed up to an event that I was invited to, like just the minimum almost, but it just goes to show that not many people do.
Well, it's
And
so easy to not, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'll be honest with you. Even this morning, like I've had a crazy 2 weeks, and I went to bed at 2 a.m. I went to see Matt Rife last night, man of my dreams, funniest guy on the planet. And I didn't get home till late. And then when the alarm clock clock went off this morning. I was like, this ain't it today. And then I was like, get up, have a shower. And it was, and it's funny we're talking about this because it was literally that military, like captain voice in my head going, you've got to get up. You committed to somebody. You gave them your word. Like other people's, and this sounds dramatic, but it's like other people's lives are at risk when you don't show up in the military.
Yeah.
And it's not to that level of like nobody would have died if we didn't make this happen today. However, integrity says in my biology, I gave my word, I'm going to show up. And now we're here. The lack of energy or the tiredness that I was feeling 2.5 hours ago is completely gone. And it's like with the gym, like you said, if you just show up, what showing up is the bit. Whatever happens after that is a bonus. And 9 times out of 10, it'll be better than you could have ever expected and more abundant. And you forget that whatever imbalance was going on that was going to prevent you from not showing up is completely gone.
Absolutely. And would you say, because I think it's really good that you have had that grounding, that discipline instilled in you from like all those years in the military. And once you left, you still have that because it's like just in your foundation. But what stopped working once you left the environment?
I certainly didn't stop working. It's only until recently unpacking that discipline and that obsessive kind of behavior, call it PTSD, call it some sort of dysfunction. I now see life through a very different lens. And only now am I consciously taking a break from being that obsessive with things. And it's really hard to find my bliss point and my equilibrium within the parameters of that discipline container.
Yeah.
What stopped? I think for me, what I missed or what was no longer is that I know the camaraderie, the connection and the community. So I've gone from being a leading seaman, leading a team within a big corporation, within a big unit, having a lot of people around all the time, being able to rely on others, being able to easily request something of someone and having them do it without question. That doesn't happen in civilian world,
Yeah,
and I didn't have to
explain a
pay
lot.
any of the, like I didn't have to pay any of those people. I didn't have to pay any invoices. When I started my business within catering, it was just me. So I was the biggest fish in my pond. I was the only fish in my pond there for a while. And I had no idea what I was doing. I couldn't call up my captain or my commanding officer or my, head of department and say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Like, how do I do this thing? I just had the bullets and had the arsenal and the weaponry, and I just did whatever I felt pertinent to do. And it worked to a degree. So I missed that camaraderie and that community and that connection. I think that that's the biggest thing that disappeared when I exited the military.
Yeah, that must be difficult to kind of go into the civilian world and see how, I guess, like lack of discipline there is. Even like the waking up in the military is a big thing. The time,
Yeah.
being punctual. Yeah.
And I think to a degree, I mean, not until I left the catering world, it didn't matter what state I was in or what was going on. Like I would always show up. And there were times when I was going through really bad addiction that like I was very high functioning when I was in that chapter. I started sort of using substances to stay awake, to be able to work more. So to me, sitting here now, it's just like, why didn't you just take a rest or take a week off? Like that wasn't an option for the version of me that I was back then. And I didn't want to let anyone down. I didn't want to disappoint. I'd become a big deal. People knew my name. People wanted me in their homes, at their parties. And I just couldn't say no. I had no boundaries. I thought they were fences that people used on their farms to keep their animals in. I didn't know I didn't know what a boundary was. I was just full metal jacket. And even in my addiction, I would still show up. I was running 5 or 6 businesses there at one stage, and I was still showing up for all 5 businesses. And, I had interstate Airbnbs, I had luxury lifestyle companies, I had the catering company, I was consulting interstate for cafes and restaurants. And I thought that that was me having time off because and
There are no boundaries. You were running
yeah,
five companies at the same time, and you thought that was rest.
yeah. Hearing somebody else say that, it's absolutely absurd. I'm like, is this a comedy show or are we talking about business?
Yeah. I remembered going to a doctor
Oh,
because every like Q4, like October, November, December, my sleep goes away. I
yeah.
don't sleep. I can't sleep. I'll try whatever pills, potions and stuff. And I wake up at like 2, 3 a.m. and then I have to go back into the office by like 8:30 and perform at the highest level. So it was like the second year in a row that this happened. And I'm just like, let's just go see the doctor. And basically
Yeah.
the doctor did like all these tests, asked me some questions, and they were like, so how do you relax? How do you unwind from the day? And
You're like, I don't.
I'm just like, "Oh, I go to the gym." And then he goes, "That's not relaxing." I was like, I chit chat with my friends, like have a little like chatting on the phone. And then he goes, "That is also not relaxing." And I'm just like, I go grocery shopping. And he goes, "That is also not relaxing." And then I got so fed up and I said, well, how do you relax? I don't know what you want me to say.
I love this. And what did he say?
He said he unwinds and relax by taking his dog out for a walk with no phones.
That's it. I could get with that.
Yeah. And basically I wanted to get like super strong sleeping pills from him at the time, and he was really reluctant, and he just said, "Look, I want you to either you swim after work because it's
Oh,
meditative, the swim,
yeah, absolutely.
or you go for a walk by yourself without your phone, like you're not talking to your friends kind of thing. Do that for 2 weeks, like minimum of like 20 minutes of that activity. And if that doesn't work, you come back and I can give you those prescription pills." But yeah, that was like such an eye opening of what unwinding is. And
Absolutely. Lovely. Oh, yeah.
tell us about that Airbnb business and I guess like how long you've been doing that.
So the Airbnb business it was a real genius idea that when I had two other businesses at the time back in 2015, wanted the freedom and flexibility to be able to move between apartments in Sydney, but also to like interstate. And I met a friend through one of my businesses who had an Airbnb in Canberra. And so I set up my rental apartment. Back then, it was not called arbitrage, it was called illegal subletting.
Yeah.
And so I was illegally subletting my rental properties. But at the
Okay.
time, I thought I was slick and I was genius and I was taking really good care of the properties. These properties would be cleaned multiple times a week. I'd freshly I spent my own money on painting the place, on steaming the carpets, the furniture. And I, in my own mind, thought that I was doing a good deed. That continued on for about 6 months. And then someone in my inner circle alerted the real estate agents of what I was doing. And I literally lost about $15,000 in one afternoon,
Oh my
which is
God.
wild. And I wasn't in the best state of mind. At that time, I'd started self-medicating more with substances to be able to keep the momentum going. Momentum. And I didn't think to just take a break and take a holiday. I was like, I'll start another business. And on reflection, that sounds so wild because I loved everything I was doing. I was passionate about food, loved styling, I loved hosting guests. Hospitality and that luxury lifestyle service industry was something that I was really passionate about. And it was easy and it didn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So, and I loved it and it filled up my cup. So instead of like stopping it, I found a way to be able to elongate the experience and be able to stay awake for longer, which on reflection wasn't the best of ideas.
You know,
But
I
yeah,
I wanted to ask about like the Airbnb, how long you've done that, and I guess what were the lessons from doing that? Mainly because I can see in my social media at the moment, there's a lot of people like pushing like the Airbnb arbitrage business. And
Yes.
because you've done it, I would love to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, for me, after those two properties no longer being available to me, or three actually, I had one in Canberra, I vowed in that moment to never be in a position where someone could take that away from me. And then I remembered, because I had forgotten, that I actually had a property down in Tasmania. So I ended up relocating to Tasmania and doing Airbnb through my own properties. And it was quite fruitful. I see these people on social media and I question myself and I say, am I doing something wrong? Am I the only one? And this can be across the board. I know any woman, any man, any child watching this, whether you're into Airbnb or fitness or business, when you see people on social media and everything looks seamless and stress-free, I challenge to say that that is bullshit.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. And there's so many moving pieces to Airbnb. And yes, the framework works. The framework works. It's a great income producing asset. It's a great business. There's so many great tax write-offs. And yes, you can set up an Airbnb in a day by going out and buying, IKEA flat pack furniture and getting someone on Airtasker to come in, and you can get your cheap international cleaning crew in. All of those things are absolutely viable. But does that mean that you're just swanning through your 52 apartments with not a care in the world? Yeah. There is so much more to it. And I think that with anything on social media, especially with these Airbnb arbitrage businesses, it is that simple, like weight loss, but it ain't that easy.
Yep. It's simple, but it's not easy. And
Exactly.
what I want the audience to take away from this as well, because I've had very brief experiences letting out my apartment a while back. I went to India over Christmas and New Year's, and because I live in Sydney, everyone wants to be in Sydney during those time, right? They want to welcome the new year. And so I let out my apartment to, I think it was like two, maybe three groups. I thought I was so smart. It was great. Basically, I had like 1 month's rent for within like a week's time, like literally.
Like the money's good, babe. The money is good.
The money is good, but logistically, the cleaners, the linens, and just communicating with guests as well. But yeah, like property is great, but it's a lot of work.
It really is. I've been in this business for 12 years now. I've been in Airbnb in different capacities as a legal sublet, as legitimate legal arbitrage, as owner occupier, as investment owner, short-term rental only. I've experienced all facets of it. Like with any business, your systems and procedures are very important, but your human resources are what will make and break you. In an Airbnb business, it is the housekeeper and the cleaner that is the glue that sticks that business together. And you cannot affect it. And for me, that was the key component. I had to pivot and I'm now no longer in the Airbnb space with those properties due to the location proximity to where I am physically. Would I do Airbnb again? Absolutely, yes, I would. But the area matters. Like when I was living in Tasmania, my latest property is down on the west coast of Tasmania. So I say this with so much love and so much kindness. And I was trying to make champagne with beer hops. And it was getting really frustrating. And I found it really challenging to communicate certain things with people because, like I said, in the military, I can say, you clean that, you did a shit job, do it again. They would do it again, no questions asked. That is not how communication in business with service providers go in the civilian world. Oh, but I did that. Oh, but I did it, and then the job doesn't get done and you've got a pile of invoices for work that hasn't been done. So I found it very frustrating. And I guess as a business owner, which pertains to anyone in business, is you've got to know when to hold them and you've got to know when to fold them. in the true words of whoever sang The Gambler. Was it Kenny Rogers?
I'm not sure. I'm not a gambler. No,
No, it's a song.
in
It's like
that
a
one.
country and Western song. But it's like you've got to be able to pivot. And if something is costing you your peace, and it's
Oh,
keeping you up at night, it's too high a price to pay. Is it this product? Is it the price? Is it the people? Or do I need to pivot out of this particular profit stream and diversify and do something else with this asset?
love how you talked about these things like the profit stream, assets, business, different asset classes as well.
Mm.
I'd love to ask you, you've had multiple different like assets, legal structures, business types. Out of all of them, which one is your favorite? And which one is your least favorite?
I think my favorite asset class now would have to be crypto. I'm loving it. And I don't know if it is crypto itself or the business that I've aligned with in the education of that, the management of that asset class. If you could take the crypto words out, the emotional roller coaster where we make decisions and we filter life through. They speak into, are you an investor? Are you a gambler? Do you have strategy? Do you have a plan? And any of those questions are pertinent to life, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business. And I just find the matter of factness within that investment space and that asset class, when understood and digested in small, masticatable pieces, for lack of a better term, it's very simple. It's not easy, but it is simple and it teaches you patience, and it really gets me excited and inspired to learn more about investing. I know that crypto works. I don't understand how exactly it works, but I also know too that good quality organic ingredients work. If I gave you a basket of delicious fruit and exotic vegetables, you may not be able to make the dish, but I could. And then I could feed it to you, and then that's proof that the skills and the ingredients and that method work. And as a chef, I understand that concept. Adapting that into crypto, I know that it works, and I don't fully understand all of the ingredients and the methods and the temperature of the oven, but I know there's something in there cooking and it's going to be delicious. And with crypto, you don't have to stir the pot every so often as abundantly as you do with a risotto. You just keep stacking.
Love how you weaved the kitchen and crypto in the same sentence. Risotto and crypto. I don't think I've ever heard that. And so that's your favorite asset class.
Yes.
I get it why. There's an interview with a financial advisor that's coming up, and would be really interesting for the audience to kind of listen to both. And yeah, and Sarah, I'd love to know, what's your least favorite asset and why?
I don't even know if I have a least favorite asset, but I think as far as there's definitely an asset to me, also an income producing asset such as a business. So if we take it back to that, I could say now moving forward, hospitality and service-based businesses that rely solely on humans, bricks and mortar business is no longer an asset class that I'm interested in investing in.
Okay, so definitely not the brick and mortar businesses.
No, and I'm still very much me, but I'm also on this journey transforming into something bigger and better and bolder. And between when the doors closed on my bricks and mortar business asset class, so much has happened in the digital space and in the world at large. And I'm from that world. Exchanging time for money is how I grew up, how I made my first million, and it works, but it's also not sustainable to a point. When I don't like having to rely on human resources solely to run a business to make a profit for myself. And that responsibility, it's not it for me anymore. I think moving into the digital space and being able to know money and know how to invest money and make the money is a valuable asset and knowledge and learning for us all to have, because the infinite possibility of money and how far we can make it expand it's infinite. There's no limits to how abundantly you can multiply your money if you know where to put it and how to water it and where to grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you, what was your first investment and how did you learn how to invest?
I think my first investment was in Litecoin and Ethereum back in 2015. And I lost all of that because I wasn't up to date with the custody situation with that. And I kind of didn't understand it. And back then, crypto was kind of like this dodgy thing that people kind of bought dodgy stuff with on the internet. So it was there, but I wish I had listened further. Surely my
Yeah.
first asset class that I invested in was property in 2006.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a while back. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was the first asset class. And I think property as an asset class is, despite what all the naysayers on Instagram are saying, I think property is a solid asset. It's an income producing asset. It's a great tax break.
It's also the biggest asset class in the world. Like
Yeah.
the biggest.
And it's easily accessible. I say that I understand things are very different now. And I grew up in a time, or came up in a time, where I was living in Sydney and I had the opportunity to purchase a 2-bedroom, bathroom, 2 carport, 2 garage, 2 level apartment in Zetland for $550. And I was like, oh no, that's absurd. That is too much money. And how far above that could a property possibly go? And that property is probably selling for 2 mil now. So I think you'll never miss out with property, but also you have to really sit with yourself and do the research and look outside of your bubble. I bought in the west coast of Tasmania for 100,000, bought a property that has, it has tripled in value, and return on investment is there. When you start looking at investment through the lens of, what am I going to get a return on investment on? And an investor asks different questions than a person wanting to buy a home. So you've really got to put the proper hat on to make the right choices to invest in the right assets. Otherwise, you're making a professional decision from a personal perspective, and those two things are not always ending up for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Investors buying a property, you're so removed from, does it look like, I guess, like the questions that you have as an investor is like, is it income producing? What's the running cost? What's the buying cost, the running cost? Is it income producing? Whereas I think when you buy a home, it's like, is it pretty? Can I see myself living here? Very different hats.
And they are different hats, but even in hearing you say those words, my mind goes, well, you can be both. You can have a little bit in, they say you want to buy the worst house on the best street. Like, have faith and conviction in yourself that you can turn that piece of stone into gold. What aesthetically pleasing or displeasing is not the center focus of how we should be making decisions in life across the board, but let alone in property. I think it's, location, location, location. And if you can get something cheap and cheerful, you'll never lose in property unless you're an idiot. And I just don't think that if you're someone who's wanting to invest in property, you're already not an idiot. You're already on the path.
And I think it's such a key takeaway when you said that at the time, was it 2006 when you bought your Zetland apartment?
Yes. No, I didn't buy the Zetland apartment. I bought a house in Tasmania for like $100,000.
Yeah. So
I just recently sold it, actually. 20 years later. Yes, thank you.
That's amazing. See, like at the time, like you'll think about like, oh, this is so much, blah, blah, blah. But then as like the decades go by, the time is just on your side.
Absolutely. And you can see with the example that I gave with the Zetland, I mean, even on reflection, there are places that I could have purchased. I think we have this really broken paradigm of ownership in this modern day. Like, oh, but I want to own the Mercedes. I want to own, like, we want to have the best now. The way that we play the long game is we choose wisely and we invest in places that are up and coming, that are nowhere even near us. Like anyone wanting to invest in Tassie, I highly recommend the West Coast. There's still places down there available. And I've been spruiking this message for the last 6 years. No one has listened. And here I am stacking my chips, doing my things. The West Coast of Tasmania is literally a gold mine, and
Okay.
it is wild. The growth, the infrastructure, the expansion, what's happening in the world post-COVID. Tassie's on a global map now. It used to be like this little hick town, at the bottom of nowhere.
Right. I
Yeah,
was
so it's
yeah,
yeah, please share. What were you thinking?
look, this might just increase Tasmania's pricing in the property market by about 10-20%. But
Absolutely.
basically, in the last few weeks, maybe the last few months, it's been so hot in Sydney, like heat wave
Mm,
after heat wave. And I'm just like, you know what? I'd love to live somewhere cold where like it's just nice. You can be fashionable. You can like put layers on and not just sweat. And I've
yeah.
literally broken into 3 different friend groups and thinking, and just like in a joking way said that maybe we should start thinking about moving to Tassie. And they also did the same thing. They also thought
Yeah.
about, and I don't
Absolutely.
know whether there's like a push in the media of that thinking, but the fact that we all thought the same.
It is. And it's a 2-hour flight from the Gold Coast. Don't get it twisted. It is quite warm at this time of year. However, the nights are cool and the air is beautiful and it is not humid and it is nourishing and expanding. That is what I miss the most about Tassie when I'm not there. The air. It's some of the cleanest air in the whole world.
Yeah, there's a reason why. Awesome. Well, look, we're going into a close soon-ish. Do you want to talk about your book?
Well, yes, there's a book coming this year. My life has had so many chapters and layers. I could liken my life to the whole complete collection of Encyclopedia Britannica. It's not just one book. It's 26 books and there's a different letter for each chapter. And I really feel putting my journey into a book will help so many people. So I have the name of the book, I've got the structure. I'm currently in a writing container. It may be self-published, it may not, but it's looking to be ready to go by Q3 or Q4 at the latest of this calendar year.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. In the meantime, I'm publishing some ebooks, Beauty Foods, a trilogy. So the first one's ready to go. The second one is almost polished and ready, and it is a blueprint for being beautiful from the inside out, whether that comes from self-worth, our values, the food that we nourish our bodies with, the sounds that we marinate our minds in, the people that we surround ourselves with, or the people and products that we consume on a daily basis. It's a blueprint for being abundant, shining bright, and being the fullest expression of yourself, full of beauty.
That is incredible. And where can our audience find you?
I am on Instagram, the Sarah French. I'm also branching out into TikTok and YouTube this year. I've dabbled in it and attempted to do that a couple of times. And then I'm going to be honest, I've gotten so overwhelmed by the tech and the back end of what content creation and podcasting looks like that I got the gun out of the holster a couple of times and I was ready to pull the trigger, and at times I did. And then I'm like, oh, I've got to clean the gun and refill the gun and put the bullets back in and do all the things, for lack of a better metaphor. And it's just like, so the gun is in the holster, the bullets are in the chamber, and I am ready to pull the trigger on YouTube and TikTok this year. So stay tuned for that.
I'm so excited. I'll make sure to link your handle, and if you want to create like an email list as well, like a wait
Absolutely.
list, just send me the link so that I can put in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one on my website at the moment, sarahfrench.com.au, and that will all be kicking off as well this year. That is another big bullet in the chamber ready to be fired.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait. Sometimes as well, like I find like we overthink about these things. Like for me, even like to move the podcast from audio to video. I overthought about it. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And then once I actually put the video on, it's like it takes time for it to get traction. So it's
Yes.
like like literally 0 views on like day 1. So I'm just like all of this for all of this overthinking for that.
And honestly, it's cultivating patience, it's consistency, and it really loops back to the point that we made at the beginning of the podcast, which is showing up. And in closing, I guess, I remember listening to a golden piece of advice that a man said, if only one cow shows up to be fed at dinner time, would you not feed that cow? Only that one showed up. So we show up for ourselves, and then even in the limitations of only one person coming to eat dinner, we're still going to feed that person and it'll
Exactly.
grow.
I love that. I love that. And what would you love women to understand about ambition that took you years?
Ambition. Ooh, self-worth. Yes, ambition. Yes, be that boss bitch. Yes, go after your goals. Yes, take no for an answer. But self-worth and how you see yourself, how you show up for yourself, and how you invest in yourself before anyone else, before your husband, before your children, before your business, before your dogs, before anyone else, will be the bliss point and will be the barometer that everything comes back into alignment with. Love yourself, know yourself, invest in yourself, because you are the biggest asset that you have. Without you, there is no your life. There is no business. So that is my ambition piece. It starts with you.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being on the show. I can't wait to read the book and to see you more on YouTube or TikTok. Thank you so much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Fiery Femmes. If this resonated, share it with a woman in your life, because we rise higher when we rise together. Don't forget to follow and review. It helps more women access the tools and conversations that build wealth and confidence. For more career and financial empowerment, come hang out on Instagram and YouTube at Fiery Femmes. I'll see you in the next episode.